Did we already do the industry if we talked about like a brewery or a distillery?
I think we did, but we can talk about it again. Which one?
What about a brewery?
Okay, so we're going with beer brewery, which I did think we hit on this. So I think Flash Briefing.
I think we did distillery because there was one opening up down the road.
Yeah, 1233. Shout out. Okay, so brewery I actually think is easier because I think your audience is larger. We have a couple local breweries, obviously in North Carolina, a lot in North Carolina, South Carolina, the one in Charleston that we like, Palmetto Brewery, shout out to them as well. If you guys want a custom skill, we'll hook you up with a free beer tour. I think with the Flash Briefing, I think there's a lot of podcast and audio out there around beers. I think there's a large enough audience that you could really create kind of a beer show. Whether you're reviewing or talking about
Call it leader.
You could talk about don't get me started on that. You could develop
just make sure you got a good intro.
You could shut up. Oh my gosh, I'm so mad. You're lucky I integrated You're
joke.
lucky I integrated pint in the happy hour for Fridays. If you check out our Friday show,
no intro
through SoundUp. Anyway, I think you could talk about the craft brewing process. I think you could talk about craft beer. I think you could really do the local events and where you're going to be at, because a lot of smaller breweries are at a ton of local events. So you could become kind of a hub for that, where to find your craft, where to find your beer in your Flash Briefing segment, and kind of intermix and intermingle some of those as well for like the more super beer, loyalists and enthusiasts, to just the general like around town becoming the local event and the local expert that gives you brand behind your beer. As far as a custom skill, I mean, gosh, if you could place orders for direct to consumer beer, I think that would be kind of cool. I know you got to deal with some of the over 21, making sure that's all legal and legit, but they're starting to do that more online, I think, with alcohol. Moving into, I think you could create a very interactive story. I think you could I was thinking about our story skillet. Like, what if you also kind of had like you could go one of two ways. You could get kind of super safety with this, like create a story of like how to not overconsume, or like a beer journey, or you could get really creative and have a fun beer journey like around the country and use the story skillet to branch off and have some different stories with that. That would be kind of fun as well.
That's a very interesting idea. I had some thoughts, but I'm gonna keep them to myself right now.
No, but
I was just thinking about like
those are very interesting thoughts. I love it.
I can't. Right, I can't say what I was gonna say, but I agree with all of that, and maybe even talking about like the coastal beverage place. Like they're not a brewery, but like just that type of place. Every day I have the app, and they're getting new beers like every day.
I think if you have a brewery or some sort, or like that, like a beverage company where you're highlighting and displaying unique beverages and beers and that kind of stuff on tap, like Coastal does, you should have a podcast. Broadcast it from your place, like weekly, consistently, for the skill. This can be heard through your skill because we have the integration
drinking
with our podcast in there.
Air.
Yeah, drinking beer on air. I think you'd have a ton of audience. If you have, I think a lot of people that I've met in those situations usually have a personality for it, so that they could really do podcasts.
You're right. A lot of brewmasters always have like a pretty good personality for video.
I think, yeah. I mean, video, audio. I think it sounds. I think it's really cool.
We should travel out and videotape some of these places. There's some really neat ones out there. So the other thing too is you could do tips on brewing at your home. Some people like to brew at home and stuff. So I would find it interesting to see the progress, or hear the progress of someone that says, all right, this month we're going to create a new beer. And like they go through, they record the process of, all right, here's some of our flavors we're thinking about, and they kind of like the testing, like all that. I don't know, maybe someone has a YouTube channel already that does something like that, but an audio form would be interesting.
I think they could really kill it on a Q&A, like you said, for home brewing. Q&A of like how to get started with your home, own craft beverage. They could kill it in the custom skill Q&A skillet with really being able. We always have this debate, like what's a lager, what's an ale, what's the difference between a hazy IPA or a West Coast IPA, that kind of stuff. Like I think that would be
something really interesting to do too. That Adam, who's commenting under the SoundUp flag, I don't think he realizes, is if you were to buy a few. If you can buy Echoes in bulk for under $20 now, Echo Dots, like the original
Right.
ones. If you had a different one set up at different stations, and you let people do like the self tour where they usually wear like headphones or something, but you didn't have someone to give the tour, and you could like go around and like ask it
Oh, you
different
mean like
questions.
actually at the brewery?
Yeah, that'd be an
Yeah.
interesting like technological type thing.
If it was more like museum oriented, because like sometimes you go on those tours and they're very like like poignant. But if you could like walk around an area and ask questions about like, well, when did this brewery first open? Like or different things. I think that would be cool. I agree with you. Or you talked about like in-ear stuff. That makes sense.
Yeah,